Hello, friendly ex-Muslim family. This is Abdullah speaking. I was invited to the Rationality Family Clubhouse room to come and speak and answer questions. These guys are anonymous ex-Muslims in the Middle East and abroad who have to hide their identities for their own safety and security. They don't have the leisure to speak freely like we do in the West. It was a pleasure sharing my story again and answering the questions while they recorded it. I wanted to share this with my YouTube family in case you missed the live conversation. Here is most of the conversation. A bit is missing from the beginning, and near the end of the stream, some cyberpunks decided to shut down the stream by exploiting some sort of clubhouse vulnerability, and they took over the room and blasted jihadi nasheeds, so it got cut off. Nevertheless, it was still a good conversation, and I hope you enjoy it. Here it is. The first half of my Muslim life was generic Muslim because obviously I didn't know, the different things. And eventually I started leaning and inclining towards Salafism. I ended up becoming Salafi, starting to listen to a lot more Salafi preachers, such as Bilal Phillips, Abdurrahim Green, and so on and so forth. The kind of like what you would call the pop Salafis, not the like hardcore Salafis that make everybody's misguided except them, right? So I was in the pop Salafi group, so basically like Bilal Phillips and people like that.
Yeah, the Western
But I
side.
didn't believe. Yes, the Western Salafis, basically, right? And that's what I thought made more sense to me because there was um I was kind of I was kind of confused about madhab, no madhab, Sufi, not Sufi, this and that. Eventually I decided that it became more clear to me. It felt like Salafism was more in line with the Quran and Sunnah. Anyway, so let's talk about that. So what happened? So I started having doubts about my Ismailism. I said this doesn't seem to really fit what the Quran says, and the biggest issue I had was the Quran says that you cannot do shirk, right? uh and so I said, well, I asked my father, why do we pray to Aga Khan? Why do we pray to Allah? And I said, the Quran says you can't do this. And he said, yeah, that's what Sunnis say. And I got scared because the Quran says if you do shirk, you go to hell forever. So I said, I don't want to be Ismaili anymore. I said, I don't want to go to hell. I'm going to be Sunni. And I even convinced my younger brother, who to this day is still Salafi, to become Sunni. And unfortunately, I convinced him, and now he doesn't want to discuss with me. But at the time, he was willing to discuss, and so he became Sunni, just like I did. And anyways, enough about him. So what happened was, time went on. I'm religious Muslim, living my life, doing my dawah, being a family man, and I work in software. So in the software industry, there's a lot of atheists. Okay, there's a lot of atheists, and people tend to be more like scientifically minded. Let's just put it like that, right? And so I had some friends that were atheists, and they were asking me questions. And I was a guy that was saying, Islam is the best. Islam is the truth. The Quran is undeniable. There's not one single mistake in the Quran. And I said, if there's a mistake, then maybe we're misunderstanding it. So I started challenging people, right? And when I challenged them, they would ask me questions. One of the questions that really sort of poked a small hole in my iman was just a very simple thing. I used to believe that and I think I was trying to be logical, which is what saved me at the end of the day. One of my friends actually asked me a question about prayer. So this would apply to all religions, not just Islam. But he would say, like, does prayer work? Does it make people better? And I would be like, yeah. And I even found a study that said that the people that prayed, the people in the hospital got better faster. I sent it to my friend. I haven't found the study. I was looking for it. He sent it back to me, and he said, this story was like a joke. It's not real. Like, it was actually like a practical joke they made, that they were like just making a joke of it. And I
There
looked
isn't
into
a
it and I was
story
shocked.
like this, Abdullah. Is there anything like that?
What do you
Uh,
mean?
uh, I mean, is there like a real study that suggests that if you pray, your health would be better?
There is a real study that shows the opposite. I'll talk about that. At this time, I didn't know about this, but this one study was saying that it does work, and it turns out like it wasn't a real study. It was just like a funny thing that someone wrote, and I think it was like a prank or something. I don't know. I don't remember the details, but my friend actually when he pointed it out to me, I was like, oh shit. And little things like that started to bug me. Like I started to wonder, why is it that if you have this dua, subhanalladhi sakhalana hada wa ma kunna lahu muqrinin wa inna ila rabbina lamunqalibun, if this really protects you, it's an adhkar, and you're taught that you're supposed to say this whenever you go in the car, it keeps you safe. And I started to wonder, does it keep you safe? Like in Muslim countries, everybody says this, not everybody, but like a lot of people say it, but is it really going? And I wondered, if I said this, do I think I'll never get in a traffic accident? No, of course not. I know I will. So then I started to wonder, like, does any of this stuff actually do anything? And as time went on, I felt like, little things like this were starting to bug me. And in terms of the actual study you were asking, yes, it's called the Harvard Prayer Study. I found out about this like way later. There's an actual study that was funded by a Christian group, the Templeton Foundation, and they wanted to prove that prayer works. So what they did was they created three groups of people: the placebo, people that were prayed for, and they were told, like so they found basically people that had like some sort of knee pain, knee surgery or something like that, right? And these people, they agreed to be in the study. One third of them were told, okay, we have a bunch of Christians praying for you. The other ones were told nothing. And the third group, nobody prayed for them. And it turns out, as can be expected, that all of them recovered at the same speed, except, funnily enough, the group that was told they were being prayed for, they took longer to recover. So it's almost like it caused some sort of anxiety for them that someone's praying for you, you have to get better quickly. I don't know. Like for some reason, it had the opposite effect. When they were told that, you have people praying for you, somehow it ended up. So this is an actual scientific study that shows no demonstrable effect of prayer. Now, of course, Muslims will say, well, they pray to the wrong God. But I'm pretty sure you can do the same
I'm pretty
experiment
sure
with
that
Allah.
this is the excuse that they will take. They will say like you didn't pray to the actual God. That's why you don't have the effect of it, of the prayer, I mean.
Yeah. I'm sure you can do the same study again. It would have the same effect, right?
Yeah, if you do a study on toothbrush, it will just show the same results. It's just a matter of faith, matter of iman, and a placebo, like you just talked about it. Yeah.
So anyway, so small things like this started to kind of bug me. And eventually what happened was I was on Facebook, and one of my friends was Muslim guy, and one of his friends was he posted something on my friend's wall as a comment. He said, I almost became Muslim. He's a Christian guy, and he said, I didn't because I found out the stories in the Quran are copied from Jewish folk tales. And I was like, oh, this is easy. I'm going to talk to this guy. I'm going to convince him to become Muslim, right? So I started talking to him, and I said, the stories in the from the stories from Allah, from God, the real God, right? It's just that it's just in a different form because it didn't reach the Quran yet. And he said, no, 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 no. He said, look into it a little bit more carefully. He said the stories in the Quran came from the Talmud. These are hearsay stories, kind of like hadith, right? And they're not revealed to Moses and the Torah. These are just stories that the rabbis were saying. And I was like, really? I looked into it and I found out that he was right. That these stories are actually in the Talmud, which is considered like some people say it's an oral revelation, but basically to the rabbis. So it's not even like like Moses or something, right? And I don't really focus on this point as much because I do think there's better points. But as part of my journey, this was the first thing that caused an issue for me, the first big thing. And then I started to look into the story of Dhul Qarnain, and for some reason now this started causing me a lot of doubt, because Dhul Qarnain is another big story in the Quran that doesn't make a lot of sense. There's this big gate, this powerful king, Dhul Qarnain. They needed his help because Yajuj and Majuj were causing problems. And how do you trap this nation? Like how do they get help? They asked this powerful king because they didn't do it by themselves. They couldn't do it by themselves. So this king, Dhul Qarnain, helped them to create this big dam or wall or gate, whatever you want to call it. Now, logically speaking, there's so many issues with this. First of all, like, where are these people? Second of all, we don't live on a flat earth. How would you trap them? Right? You know what I'm saying? Like, none of this makes sense because on a flat
Yeah.
earth, you could potentially trap them between the ocean and the dam or something like that, because it's they'll just fall off the earth.
Yeah,
But
or you can just trap them in like a teapots thing, like just the mythical genie.
there's like, it doesn't make, it's not logical sense. Now sometimes I think it's kind of funny that the first thing that Muslims say to me, and they laugh about this, they say he left Islam because he couldn't find Gog and Magog on Google Maps. The funny thing is that that is true in a sense, because you will never find them on Google Maps because they're not real. So they think it's a joke, but it's actually like the joke's on them. Because if you believe in this fairy tale, well, the question is, why is it that the Caliph Omar tried to send an expedition to find this dam? Like he tried to find it too, right? And so when you start adding all of the hadith in there, it becomes quite clear that this is not like the Mongols or something. These are like some supernatural creatures or something that are stuck inside the earth somewhere, digging to get out, and they were trapped by this giant gate made of copper and brass, right? So that was again a big problem for me. I spoke to my wife. This was in Ramadan, I think 2014. And I spoke to my wife and she said, just talk to your friends. I talked to my Muslim friends. My Muslim friends said, listen, you're hanging out with too many atheists. You're not spending enough time with Muslims. Just forget about all this stuff. So I said, okay, fine. I decided to forget about all my doubts. I just buried them and I became Muslim again. The rest of Ramadan, I fasted. I made up my fast that I missed. I missed one fast. And for the entire year, I just kept being Muslim. The next Ramadan came. And again, this is now when I finally left it. In the middle of Ramadan, Quran is shoved in your face in Ramadan, right? More than any other time. So at this time, I was in the masjid having just before iftar, and Sheikh Dawood Butt in one of the mosques here was giving a khutbah, and he was saying the Quran. These scientists are so dumb. They say that there's the sky they say the Quran is wrong because it says the sky is held up without any pillars that you can see, and this and that. And he started going on and on about the science in the Quran, and this actually triggered me because I already had some issues with the science. And so this time I said, I can't bear to leave this alone anymore. I got to find out the truth. So I looked into it in great detail. I started to read every single thing I could about the science in the Quran, any website that was criticizing Islam, any YouTube articles. I wanted to see both sides. And eventually I came to the conclusion as day by day went that there's no way this is from God, right? Like I was praying in the mosque and I was thinking, this Surah Maryam, talking about Jesus and he did this and this happened. It just sounds like a fairy tale. It doesn't sound like, what if I'm living a lie? At that point, I decided that I'm going to leave Islam. But I didn't leave Islam per se in one day. What I did was I started to post on Facebook that, look, these are the things I'm reading. These are the things which are causing me issues. And can anyone help? Some Muslims got mad at me. So at this point in time, I should mention that I have a lot of friends in the Muslim community. I'm pretty popular in a sense. A lot of people love me and know me. I was known as this Muslim convert because even though I converted from one sect to another, a lot of people think Ismailis are not Muslim. Even if they were Muslim, they still loved me. They used to think that this guy is cool because he converted to Islam and he's so religious. Whereas, I'm born Muslim and I don't even pray and this and that. So I was seen kind of like a mini celebrity. And I think a lot of converts know this experience that when you convert to Islam, you become like a mini celebrity. People love you because you reflect what they want to be and they're not able to sometimes do themselves. So they look up to you, right? And of course, anytime someone accepts your way of life, it validates what you believe. So it makes you feel better about yourself. So people started to really wonder, am I doing some social experiment? Is this a joke? Like, what's going on? And then people started getting angry at me and saying, some of them, they said, you should talk to an imam, you should talk to a sheikh. Why are you posting all this stuff causing fitna in the community and this and that? And one of my friends said, listen, I almost became atheist, but I'm still Muslim. Let's talk. So I deleted all of my posts. And I said, let's talk about this. I went to his house. We spoke for like 3 or 4 hours. And at this time, again, I was a very early in my stages of disbelief. I didn't have a lot of knowledge about the problems with the Quran. And so I was still poking holes in it. What I do now is I don't even do it that way. I just say, what is the reason to believe in it in the first place? You prove to me. The burden of proof is on you. Why should I believe this is from God? And of course, there's not a really good answer for that. But at the time, I was saying, Well, these are the problems I have. The Quran has these mistakes. Sat down, we looked over all of the mistakes I had. I brought up Dhul Qarnain. I brought up a bunch of things, Muhammad's bad behavior, some of the things he did. At the end of the day, after the conversation was over, he explained some of them to me the best he could. And the other ones he said, listen, I don't have an answer for this, but I'm going to take a leap of faith. So to him, the answer was basically something called Pascal's wager. If anyone studied a little bit of philosophy, they know Pascal's wager means, I'm going to believe just in case. It's not a very good logical thing to do because realistically speaking, you're making a bet that makes no sense. Like you can know, you should know and you should believe with certainty, not just in case. Just in case is useless. But that's what he told me. And so I asked him, I said, if I come up with more issues, are you willing to talk about it? He said, no. He said, I don't want to talk about this anymore. I said, okay, that's fine. So then I continued my journey and I continued being ex-Muslim because he wasn't able to solve the problems. And as time went by, I realized there is no solution to these problems. No matter who I talk to, no matter how many times I talk to imams, I talk to a guy that teaches Islam in a Western university. He teaches Islam. He wasn't able to help me. I spoke to this other guy that backstabbed me. His name is Arij Anwar. He was making notes about me and trying to make me look bad. He posted things on Facebook saying, "Oh, I never had khushu in my prayer. I hated fasting and this and that." He tried to make me look like I was a bad Muslim or something. So there was that guy, and this guy was an imam too. He was an imam. He was a friend of mine that became an imam. Then finally, at this point, it's becoming more and more clear nobody's going to be able to help me. One of my friends told me talk to a Sufi sheikh. So I said, okay, I'll talk to a Sufi sheikh. Maybe I just got the wrong version of Islam being Salafi, right? I went to the Sufi sheikh and I started asking him questions. And I asked him, and this was one on one, I said, isn't it likely that the Muslims, the Arabs at the time of Muhammad living there, used to believe in a flat earth? Isn't that plausible, right? He got mad at me. He started shouting at me, saying, how dare you say this about the Sahaba? You're calling them stupid and this and that. I said, what? I said, I'm not calling anyone stupid. I'm saying this is the situation of the state of knowledge in that scientific knowledge in that era, in that locale. And of course, he got mad at me. So that was the last time I went to see him. But I was right, actually. The Quran reflects, a pre-scientific version of reality. It talks about the sky being held up, how Allah keeps it from falling, how the earth is spread out like a bed, how and so on and so forth. Right? Like it's obviously extremely. It's geocentric. It talks about the earth is the center of the universe, and this was a big problem for me because it became a big problem because it's not just that Allah was speaking in the language of the time. It's that Muhammad probably would have believed the same thing. So now we have a bigger problem. How do I know whether it's actually not just Allah speaking in the language and not just Muhammad's flawed information? If it was Allah, I would expect better, right? I would expect him to include some basically like accurate reflection of reality in a way that they would have felt okay with it and I would have felt okay with it. Instead, we have something that caters to 7th century and is very problematic in the 21st century. So this became my thing and I decided to make a blog. People kept saying I'm a Jewish agent, and so then I decided to make a YouTube, and that's when the story basically starts, the real story of how I left Islam and how I started my activism. That's basically the story in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's pretty fascinating, actually. Yeah, that's pretty inspiring, actually, especially because you were logical, not taking the religion in an emotional way. You were actually taking the neutral steps of getting to know Islam better and better. It's getting deeper in the religion. And not only that, like, I know something that if you're like a human being born as a Muslim and you Islam itself, okay, you're going to be a believer, you're going to have a great faith. But if you look into the mythical uh, s- uh, sources, you go into Talmud, like you said, you go into the old legends, this will be like a huge disappointment for you.
Yes,
Yeah, the mic is yours, Lucas. Yeah.
yeah, again, I don't use this Jewish argument because It's a lot more academic and technical when you
Yeah.
start getting into the Talmud and the sources for that, and there's
It
multiple
even
versions of the Talmud.
it even goes to more ancient roots, Abdullah. That even the Talmud and Judaism, as in like its in entirety, goes back to the Sumerian and the Babylonian roots, because this is where the all the idea of monotheistic or polytheistic, I don't know, like I think more than monotheistic idea of God came from. It was all rooted into the Sumerian texts, the 7 days of creation, and then God took rest and all that, which through the history it traveled and landed in Islam in a modern fashion, linguistic fashion, probably that matches with the like the Arabic capability of putting words in a nice poetic way. That's why people bowed into that and still thought that this is like all coming from God and whatnot.
Yeah, that's well said. Definitely, all of these stories have pre-Islamic sources as well, even pre-Jewish sources. Zoroastrianism is another one that comes to mind as well. You know, so yeah, exactly. The story
Exactly.
of Noah is is as old as time itself.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of had the same situation like you, but probably with different situations and different examples. But I also had like some questions regarding like things that have to do with mannerisms in Islam and the ugly character of the prophet, the so-called prophet, and all that. And when I started reading, I discovered like there's a whole world that has been hidden and kept away from me that I had to dig deep into until I found like you can say like I found the bottom of it, and then I decided to become what I am today, at least just to leave this religion. I would like to ask you one question. I mean, probably there are more than one question, but like one of the very famous questions that like the Muslims keep asking us, like the non-religious people, is that what is your moral reference? Where do you point the compass when it comes to morals, since you are not a Muslim and you don't believe in God? Like when there is an excuse for you to kill, and in a very bad way, they put it this way, like you can go and make like sexual intercourse with your sister and your and your mother. Uh, how does Abdullah like? Where do you take your moral references from?
Yeah, good question. So before I talk about that, I just want to talk about the character of Muhammad and morality. For me as a Muslim, this never caused me issue because I always just accepted that if I don't understand, he's speaking to God, so maybe I just don't understand why he's doing what he's doing. It was only after I was able to look at Muhammad in a neutral light, not like a kind of biased view of him as a prophet, that I was able to now start to look at the things he did, which were questionable. For example, taking away the night of Sauda and giving it to Aisha because he wanted to sleep with Aisha, and Sauda was old and he didn't want her anymore and he wanted to divorce her. Things like that, they seem very unfair because he's the most fair, just, moral example. Why would he take away her night? Doesn't make any sense. But when I was a Muslim, I was like, oh, okay, well, Allah approved it. But when I started leaving Islam, these things came to light in a new way. So I wasn't able to look at that. Now, in regard to your question about morality, right and wrong, I actually just made a video on Islamic morality. Actually, I think it's one of my best videos so far. And the answer to this question is that morality, when you talk about morality, you know the what does morality mean? What is the definition of morality? If you ask a Muslim, would they tell you morality is what Allah said? So Allah gets to decide what's right and wrong. If that is the case, then I would ask the Muslim, well, what if Allah said that you have to kill your firstborn son? Okay, if you have a son and not a daughter, you have to kill him. Would this be moral? Now, you would have a hard time, any theist would have a hard time to say that this would be moral because this
Actually,
doesn't like,
it happened, Abdullah, in Quran. Like there is a verse that says like that God found a boy when he found a boy and he killed him, and
yeah,
it's
khidr.
supposed to be a good thing for people to believe in. I mean, I find this like a little absurd.
You're talking about the story of khidr.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. So this is a sort of, this type of thinking obviously is not very good because it doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think most people would understand that just because God says something, it can't become good. So then, okay, what do we mean by good then? From our perspective as human beings, it's quite clear, and or it should be clear. As Sam Harris says, in a world of rocks and trees, there is no consciousness and there's no morality, because there's no consciousness. So what matters is consciousness. And when you have consciousness, when you have animals and humans, then it's the state of that consciousness that brings about what morality would mean. So in my case, what I use human thriving, right? And I think that this is the one thing that everyone can at least agree upon when judging whether something is moral or immoral. This is something that we can all agree on in common. Now, of course, nobody's forced to agree on this. Some crazy person might say that killing people is good, right? They could say that. That could be their opinion. But what I'm saying is, if someone says that, they wouldn't have any basis to say that. If someone says, my God says killing is good, again, they're appealing to their own version of morality, which is not based on any sort of harm and benefit, but based on what God says. So again, that would be a flaw. The world I want to live in is a world that's based on human thriving. All of us people, we all instinctively know what is good. When we see an animal that's suffering, that's starving, for example, that needs water, we know that this animal is not thriving, that this is not the ideal state for this animal. When we see a child that's missing the mother is not there, in help them to find their mom, and we know this child is not thriving. We can see this, and this is biological, right? We have this sort of hardwired in us biologically. We have some basis for understanding what is considered thriving and what is not thriving. So to maximize human thriving and the thriving of conscious creatures, that is my morality. So that means, if something is hurting someone else, then that's obviously not thriving, right? Like, golden rule is one way to put it.
Yeah, actually, that's a great point. And I would like to mention something that concerns the Muslims. Even the Muslims do it subconsciously. Like, if you take a scenario, a Muslim finds someone is in desperate need. Okay, he's not going to go back to the text. He'll say, like, okay, wait for me. I'm just going to read what my moral compass says. He's just going to act subconsciously because he instinctively know what is good and what is wrong. It's born with it. It's not just written in a Quran. He just knows what he has to do because it's instinctual.
Yeah, and here's another interesting point which I forgot to mention in my video. This actually blows that point out of the water. The Quran says, look at how Muhammad behaves, right? And if he didn't behave in a good way, then you would not accept him. So the Quran is even appealing to some sort of right and wrong outside of what Muhammad does. It's saying that look at him and judge him for his character. He has a good character. How could you judge him as having a good character if what he does is the basis? Then you can't compare him to himself. Doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah, that's
That,
very
that,
true.
that is absolutely correct. That is absolutely correct. I think there's a question that has been pondering that I've been pondering about like for a while. You know, on a different social media platforms, mainly you can talk about TikTok, probably Instagram follows. Is that when you find like I don't know, like I think it's usually women, but I may be wrong. You see like a beautiful white American or Canadian woman who suddenly embraced Islam. Um, and I'm asking like the question, and she says like, "Thank God, Alhamdulillah, that I was shown the true way toward this beautiful religion. Allah is Almighty, Allah is great, and da 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 da." And then she had dropped her entire like real character or who really she is in order to become somebody else. And I'm saying like, what happened? How do people really, what kind of power do they do, Islamic scholars, to fool these people, poor people, into converting them into Islam? Do you have any idea about this?
So, um, by the way, I don't know if Wahdat al Wujud is able to talk. He's a friend of mine, Farhan, and he might have some value to add to this conversation as well, especially on this topic. I think there's all sorts of people in the world, and I do think that one category of people that are that fall into this are people that are always, how do I say this? people that are prone to falling into cults. When it's not just Islam, but like if you look at any sort of cult and you look at the type of people that join, a lot of them are attracted to like a strong personality. They might have issues in their life, right? They may have some sort of the down about something, or they're looking for some meaning and purpose, and often they don't realize that they could find that same meaning and purpose in their own religion that they already have. Like some of them, they feel like there's some inconsistency between what the for example, with my wife's case, you know, she was introduced to many before she met me. She knew some Muslim men and women that actually told her about the Quran, and they told her that Allah makes more sense than Trinity. So she converted from Protestant Christianity to Islam because she said, well, that makes more sense, one God versus three gods. The idea of three gods is to many people incoherent, and it's hard for them to sit with that, right? But anyway, so basically, I think, you know, if you look at Islam, it's very effective at converting Christians. So most ex-Christians end up becoming Muslim, and most ex-Muslims end up becoming atheists, which is kind of funny. I think part of it is people are just looking for some purpose in life, and maybe the Quran, you know, certain things in the Quran appeal to them. They don't have the full picture. They don't see the bad sides, I guess. So they become Muslim. I mean, I jumped into that as well. My wife did as well. So I understand. I know a lot of Christian converts that also became Muslim.
It's like people are leveling up from probably Judaism, then Christianity, then Islam, then they finish the game with atheism, sort of speak. Anyway, anybody, Leo, do you have any comment before we open the hand raising? Because I'm starting to get like questions from people, the audience, that they
Yeah,
want to ask questions. So is there
yeah,
anything
that's a
that you
good
need to
idea.
say before?
No,
Can we
I'll
do it
pass
now?
for now. Yeah, we can do
All
it
right.
for now. Yeah.
Mr. Candle, افتح الهاند raising, open the, like allow people to come
Yeah,
on board.
yeah, it's now
Yeah.
open. Yeah,
All right.
open for everyone.
Open for everyone. Oh my God, guys,
Yeah,
one by
there's a lot
one.
of speakers.
Shooting.
Yeah,
Abdullah,
let's.
people like you. They want to ask you questions though.
Mm-mm.
Like me, we'll find out.
Yeah, there's some echo, guys. Can you please close the mic until your
Yeah,
turn
close
comes?
the mics, people. Close the mic.
Let's just hope we don't get any extremists, like someone cursing at us or something.
I think it will happen. I hope it won't, but I think it will
Yeah,
happen
you
in a
should be
way.
ready, Abdullah, to listen to these people. Yeah. Okay, should we go by turns? We can go to Wahdat al-Wujud if you'd like to say something, have a question, or share your idea. Do you hear us, Wahdat al-Wujud? Okay, moving along to
Yeah.
Usman. Do you have something to say? You can open your mic.
Yes, thank you so much. Obviously, we're very happy and honored to have Abdullah Samir with us today on Clubhouse. Finally, he was one of the people that influenced my journey into atheism, and very really happy to talk to him tonight. So, my question to Abdullah is, as you said, you've been doing dawah and promoting Islam for 15 years after leaving Islam, and now you're an ex-Muslim, and you're pretty much doing the opposite, criticizing Islam on social media. So looking back at these videos back in the days when you used to promote Islam and discuss about Islamic matters, watching these videos right now as an ex-Muslim, what's your impression about your old self? How do you feel about that? Thank you.
Yeah, I think all of us that went through this phase kind of, you know, we face palm a lot when we think about, like, sometimes we feel like, how stupid was I that I actually believe this? And but it's, you know, logically it makes perfect sense. I wasn't a very scientific person, and so a lot of these mistakes and errors in the Quran, I didn't notice them because I just didn't have knowledge of science, and you know, so I think a lot of it is you just face palm, you know, it's face palm, and you know, you feel bad that you went through this for so many years and you don't want other people.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Abdullah. Thank you, Usman. Cheryl, your question, please.
Okay, so my question is, before you moving into atheism, have you tried Christianity, or I mean, what's your take on that, or what's your opinion? Because you must have explored that as well. So, what's your take on that?
Have you tried Christianity, Abdullah?
Excuse myself for 2 minutes. Just hold on a second. I apologize for that. I need to
No,
step
it's
away for a
okay.
couple minutes.
It's okay. All right. Okay, no worries.
Yeah, okay. I'm inviting everyone to follow Abdullah, check his YouTube channel. He's a great person to follow as an ex-Muslim. Follow the moderators too. Yeah, this is peaceful so far. Conversation is going pretty well. So
Yeah, I'm pretty liking the idea that everything is peaceful so far. Hopefully, it stays like this.
I'm surprised actually we don't have that on Clubhouse.
And also, people, if anybody wants to send a question, even in Arabic, and I can translate it, you can send it to me. إذا حدا بده يبعث لي بالعربي وأنا بترجم بالإنجليزي in case يعني في أي مشكلة باللغة إلي أو لليو.
Yeah, that's fine. أي حد عنده أي سؤال فينا نترجم، أنا والأخ مربط موجودين.
Nice to have you on board, Yumna.
Yes, hi. How is everybody?
Everybody's cool. We're happy to
Good.
have you.
Yes, thank you. I'm happy to be here. Um, I had to leave the room. I'm back. Do you mind if I ask a question, or do we have questions
Actually,
already?
yes, you can ask, but Abdullah said that he will come back within 2 minutes. I think he has some situation he has to
Okay.
take care for.
Yeah, I'm back
Okay.
now. Hello?
Yeah, he's back. He's back.
Hi.
So,
Okay,
Hi,
so
Abdullah.
let me just answer that question from Cheryl.
yeah, Cheryl was asking you, like, have you tried Christianity or any other religion? Did I put that right, Cheryl?
Yes, specifically Christianity, because I know of many people who have come from Islam to Christianity. So yeah, I just wanted to know his opinion on that.
Yeah, so based on the nature of the issues that I had with Islam, quite obvious the Bible suffers from the exact same issues. The story of creation in the Bible, it's just as bad, if not worse, than the Quran. You know, even if you don't take the 7 days literally, the fact that it talks about like the order of creation is totally wrong with the trees and the birds and all of that. It's just you can't even have days before the sun was created. The fact that it talks about an ocean in the sky that was, you know, unless we take all of these things allegorically and we say that none of these things is literal and, you know, stop reading science into the Bible. Again, I would go back to the same issue I had with the Quran, which is why should I believe this is from the creator of the universe? The creator of the universe basically had the most important thing that ever happened, which was Jesus dying for our sins and being raised up. And we barely have any evidence for that. All we have is some hearsay accounts from like supposedly 100 people that were written in some book like 70 years after his death. And so I just don't think there's any good reason to believe any of these books is from God. If there is a God, even if there is a God, and it's, let's say it's possible there's a God, a creator, some sort of force or entity, it just does not appear that this creator sent us any books, sent us any wisdom, any guidance. It just seems like we're here on our own. So no luck with Christianity.
I think to give like a little comment on what you're saying, Abdullah, is that why should God send any message using any certain language? Say it's Arabic language. Why should the Chinese or the Japanese or the Swedish suffer learning this language in order to like receive the glory of like this religion or that? It doesn't make any sense to me as well.
It does appear to be the case that all of the so-called biblical prophets are all Hebrews / Middle Eastern prophets, and they did not appear in. But the contents of the book as well are like full of mistakes, right? Full of horrible things, like you know, the Israelites are allowed to take the Midianites, virgin women as slaves, and they kill all the men. Like God allowed slavery. You know, Noah's flood makes no sense. I mean, go to any ex-Christian video, like for example, Dark Matter 2525 or Non-Stamp Collector on YouTube. these guys that know the Bible or that used to believe in the Bible, or even some of my friends, for example, Holy Kool-Aid, people that used to be former evangelists, they will talk about the problems in the Bible much more strongly and with much more evidence and references than someone like me ever could. But like, my ex-Christian friends all agree on the same thing, that the Bible is not from God, and it suffers from the same type of issues. Even if you say that God, let's say he didn't want to reveal in Chinese, he wanted to reveal it in Aramaic to Jesus or in Arabic to Muhammad, that, let's say that's theoretically possible, although it seems unlikely. Again, the content of the book itself is full of mistakes, so you would need, if it was sent in every single language at the same time, that would have been amazing, and that would have been very difficult for us to explain away. Imagine the Quran or the Bible came in 100 different languages, sent in the minds of people all over the world at the same time, the exact contents in a different language. I mean, we would be stunned.
But
Of course,
Abdullah,
God could do
wouldn't
this
that,
if he wanted.
sorry, Abdullah, wouldn't that be too obvious? Like, nobody would then believe, would at this point, everybody would believe in the Bible or in the Quran if it read that this way,
Yeah.
There wouldn't be
So
any, yeah.
it's kind of a strange thing that God wants to. So here's my issue with that. My issue with that is, philosophically, well, I don't believe in free will. Philosophically, I don't think that we have free will. I do believe we have the illusion of free will, but I do believe that every single decision that I made in my life was based on two things. It was based on my genetics, and it was based on my life experiences. If you take the same bundle of atoms, which is me, and you recreated it at the same time with the same experience, I would do the same thing, the exact same thing I did last time. So let's say you don't buy that. Let's say you do believe there's free will. The question is, why would God want to do this to us? Why? Like, it doesn't make sense. It just seems like it's more a post hoc rationalization that we find ourselves here in the middle of this universe, not knowing how we got here or what we're doing, and then we come up with explanations to make sense out of it and to justify behaving in a certain way. But why would God want? Here's the way I put it. According to Islam, and I guess according to Christianity too, 80% of the world's population is going to hell. The vast majority of people are not Muslim or not Christian, and they don't believe that Allah is real. And so if they know about Islam and they got the message and they reject it, they're all going to hell. So according to us, according to theists, God, the creator of the universe, has an 80% failure rate. Like, if I ran a factory and I was making cups, imagine 80% of the cups went in the garbage. I would be fired. My business would be, I'd go out of business. No one would consider me like a competent creator. They would consider me an incompetent creator. So if God really exists,
I think this
and
is a
he
beautiful
created,
analogy, Abdullah. This is a beautiful thing that you said.
yeah,
Yeah.
would he send most of his creation to hell? It doesn't. It's bizarre. Like, it's like, and if he did that, knowing they're gonna go to hell, because he knows, then he's an evil mofo. Like,
Yeah, it's like it seems
All
like
right.
he's trying to separate us instead of uniting the human
Mm,
beings. Yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna take Yumna to ask the questions. I have questions on my
Yeah,
own.
yeah, because
Someone
we
just
have
asked me
Yumna, then
questions,
we will
so
move to. Yeah, we
yeah.
have Yumna, and then we will have no Shad. I think I've refreshed like the page, and this is how it appears. Yumna, first of all, thank you for being here with us, and your question, my dear.
Yes, thank you. So I was curious, Abdullah, in your research, when you were researching Islam, um, I was curious your thoughts about what you learned about how women are treated. For me, I'm ex-Muslim, and it's something that I struggle with still, because I believe that women have the freedom to choose whatever they want, like anyone else, including their religious beliefs. But I'm curious what you found as you were studying it, the treatment of women, but then also, did that reveal something to you yourself about yourself?
thanks for the question. Um, I would say, Yumna, I would say that it's very clear to anyone that looks at the Quran that the Quran is a religion by men for men. I mean, when we look at the history, well, let's just to sum up Islam in one sentence. The Prophet said, if I were to command anyone to make sujud before another, I would command women to prostrate themselves before the husbands because of the special right of them given to husbands by Allah. And this is Abu Dawud 2140. So this is like in one sentence, you know, when we look at the seerah, we see the women complaining that like in Quran 33:35, Imam Ahmed recorded that Salama, the wife of Muhammad, said, why is it that we are not mentioned in the Quran as men are, right? And then there's another hadith in Tirmidhi that basically explains this as well. That's in the tafsir, but the hadith is in Tirmidhi that Salma asked the Prophet, why are we not mentioned like the men are mentioned in the Quran? So, you know, practically speaking, there's some really bizarre things in the Quran that really stick out. For example, one of them is a testimony of one man versus two women. That is just mind-boggling, right? When you look at the hadith actually explains this and says that in Bukhari it says, so I'm talking about 282. It says, and bring two witnesses from among your men, and if there's not two men, then a man and two women. Okay, so that now it even explains it. It even explains it. It says, so that if one woman errs, then the other can remind her. It's bizarre. It's like, okay, what do you mean? What if the man forgets? Why does the woman only forget? And the hadith actually sort of explains this. If you accept the hadith as a tafsir of this ayah, the Prophet said, isn't the witness of a woman equal to half that of a man? The women said yes. The Prophet said, this is because of a deficiency of a woman's mind. So if we accept this hadith as accurate, this would explain the mindset that came into this ayah being revealed, so-called revealed. That's a big issue. Quran 434 about beating women is a big issue. And the biggest issue with 434 is not even that you can beat your wife. It's the reason why. You don't even need a reason. All you have to do is fear nushuz. It's not even that she did something wrong. You merely have to fear her doing something wrong. And then you can do all of these steps, for example, advising them, forsaking them in bed, and then striking her. So it's very unfair. I mean, I can go on and on. There's like so many issues with this, right? I mean, sex slavery problem.
I think the idea of beating women is scary on its own. Sorry, Yumna. The idea of beating women is just like scary as we speak.
Can I add something to
very
that?
scary to the woman especially.
Just wait your turn, sir. Just wait your turn, sir.
I was just curious though for yourself, your personal experience, because I'm interested in hearing
Okay.
the personal, not just the, you know,
Okay.
yeah. So for you
the
personally,
issue,
did it reveal something for you?
I think the biggest issue for me was the divorce law, the talaq issue. And unfortunately, I had, you know, in my 17-year marriage, I'd actually divorced my wife 3 times, more than 3 times. And to me, this actually caused a lot of problems because I didn't want to break up with her. I wanted to be with her, but I had lost my cool on 3 separate occasions over those 17 years. And it caused me a lot of problems because it just means that the whole marriage is so vulnerable to a man's anger and him basically saying something that maybe he'll regret 5 seconds later, but once he says it, it's done. So in my case, I ended up kind of, you know, making excuses for myself and saying that I still want to be with her and I don't care what I did. Maybe I was too angry or whatever, and I somehow justified it to myself. But I used to feel guilty about staying with her after I did that. That's like a personal example. I don't think I really pondered over the morality issues like I told you, because I used to accept that if this is from Allah, then Allah can say whatever he wants about women. I mean, I don't, just because I don't understand it doesn't mean I have to accept it. I think I had an issue with the LGBT thing as well, because I always used to feel that, you know, people that are gay, they don't choose to be gay, they are gay. So why would this be a sinful, haram, terrible, evil thing when this is, but I accepted it. And I used to tell people that, well, Allah is the lawmaker, so he decides. So the morality issue, the issue with women's rights, stuff like that, I think I didn't have a problem with it as a Muslim, but I did run into problems with the divorce law.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Abdullah. Yumna, are you done with your question, or is there anything?
Yeah.
Yes,
No,
yes, Abdullah.
Okay. Ever seen like a
I just wanted to ask if the question was.
Yeah, go ahead, Abdullah.
Okay.
No, I was just saying the same thing you said. Is that what you wanted to know?
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
So
I think interesting because, you know, looking back at myself as a Muslim, I just remember being so judgmental of people in general, but women in particular. And it embarrasses me to think about, you know, the thoughts that I used to have about women. Yeah, I never want to be like that again.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So if I refresh now, I'm looking. I think Noshad, if I pronounce it
Yeah,
correctly.
but
What is
before,
your question?
uh,
Yeah,
can you
before
hear me?
us, before. Okay, but just before taking new shot, I'm gonna have to ask Abdullah a question from my friend. He said, "How do you feel about people like Muhammad Hijab and Ali Dawa? Do you think these Muslims, these like Dawa people, are pushing people away from Islam rather than welcoming them?"
It's possible they're pushing people from Islam. I'm not sure. I do think that Muhammad Hijab and Ali Dawa and these type of guys, they are radicalizing Muslims as well. They're calling people to a much more fundamentalist version of the religion. You know, they're promoting things like, and it depends, you know, from person to person. Muhammad Hijab was making excuses to justify why you don't need to kill apostates. He was saying you send them to another country and this and that. But like Ali Dawa was like, we're proud of that. We're proud of that. So it depends who you're talking about. But in general, I don't know if they're pushing people from Islam or not. I do think they're radicalizing young Muslims, and I think those young Muslims are proud of them, and you know they feel like these guys are standing up for what they believe in, and they have this, you know, they have big audiences. So I don't know if they're pushing people from Islam or bringing people. I don't think they, you know, people like Muhammad Hijab convert people to Islam, but I think Muslims do become radicalized by these people, if you want to call it, not radicalized to become terrorists, but radicalized to become fundamentalists.
Yeah, that's a good point of
Okay.
view.
So
Can leave the mic
now
for
we
any.
move to. All right. Should we move on?
Yeah, we can go on.
All right. Okay, Noshad, your question.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for this opportunity. I can see that um, you know, you're all Arabic speakers, and I'm an ex-Muslim from India. Even though I have learned um Arabic to read and write in madrasas, I had no idea about the knowledge and no meaning. So even from childhood, even though I have been told all kind of beautiful stories about Prophet, I was always a little bit of skeptic mind from childhood onwards. So I never fully followed, and I left religion even without reading, knowing any of the text. I came to know about what is actual meaning of things written in Quran only last, couple of months since Clubhouse opened and people started talking about it. And then I went and started read Quran, and to my astonishment, even as a child, I would have picked up all the fallacies in it. But now looking back, I feel, oh God, how did I waste so much of my younger days, much younger days, reading without knowing what it is. So my question is to you is that I followed Islam without having any clue about what is written in Hadith or Quran. But as an adult, when I read, this is my feeling is Allah is a puppet of Muhammad. Whatever Muhammad thinks, Allah speaks for him on his behalf. And everybody applaud as great sayings from Allah. But it's actually Muhammad speaks through Allah. Whatever his wishes are, Allah certifies, approves, and so on. This is the message of Quran I got after reading it last couple of 2-3 months. This is what I got. If I knew this, I would have left long time ago. But my question is this: as Arabic, with people who speaks Arabic as their first language, knows Arabic, how they didn't understand this, or am I mistaken?
So that question wouldn't be for me because I'm in the same boat as you. So
Actually,
I guess
I can briefly answer this, Noshad. I mean, it takes you really long time and courage to dare to ask the questions. I mean, all of us, like Arabic speakers, have learned things about Quran as they are like the most beautiful things that can be ever recited, and that there is nothing more beautiful than that. But when you start digging into the language and you find about like the grammatical mistakes and like the bad meanings in some of the verses, I'm not going to say like few of the like sexual things found in Quran, but in fact there are a few things. You start to think like, why should like the creator of the universe contain his last revelation to the entire humanity before he goes silent forever, and contain such like very bad wordings and sentences, and to claim it to be the best thing that we will always need to have and to refer to when it comes to like our morals, our like morality, our economy, our socializing, our politics, our everything, like our entire existence. But then when you start reading deeper into this, you discover like it's a bunch of crap that you just need to have like the courage to refuse it and to refute it. And this is what actually happened with like anybody who's on the stage right here. Hopefully I have answered you this question and answered your question. And I'd like to move to the next speaker, or like if you have a question, Mr. Moin.
Yes, thank you so much. Is Samir still in the club or in the room? I have a question for him. So he said Ismailis pray to Allah Khan. Now, being an Ismaili, I haven't seen a ritual or practice where we Ismailis pray to Allah Khan. I mean, we use him as a wasila. Now, that being said, I'm not an Ismaili apologist. Just wanted to know his understanding. It might be his interpretation of seeing certain rituals or prayers, but I wanted to know his conjecture or whatever his analysis is. Now, apart from that, after he left the Ismaili tariqa, was there any reaction from the Ismaili community to bring him back?
I think this is an interesting question, Abdullah.
Okay, so I'll do the second one first. It's easier. I was a very nominal Ismaili. I don't even call myself ex-Ismaili because I was not practicing. I used to go to Jamaat Khana once in a while. I used to go for bandgi in the morning, which is like meditation. That was fun. I actually have very good memories of my dad taking me for bandgi, and we used to have chai in the morning, and you know, it's a very sweet experience. But and I used to miss the Khane Khane, Jamaat Khana, for those that don't know, it's basically the mosque of the Ismailis. And it's a much better it's a much more fun experience than going to the masjid. When you go to Jamaat Khana, especially on Fridays and Saturdays, there's like, you know, after the prayer ceremonies, you get to mix with people. They have this auction where you get to buy food that's made by the community, and the money is donated to the Khane, to the mosque. I have good memories of being an Ismaili. And I even thought about going back to being like an atheist Ismaili or an agnostic Ismaili just to be part of the community. Nobody reached out to me back then because I was a nobody and I wasn't like publicly ex-Ismaili. I was just like, yeah, I became Sunni, but nobody knew that from the community because I wasn't in the Ismaili community per se, because I used to go with my parents to the mosque, but I didn't do anything else. In regard to the thing about doing shirk and Ismailis praying to Aga Khan, well, you know, when you say Ya Ali to Rahem Kar, Ya Mola to Fazal Kar, O Ali, you know, have mercy on me, and O Mola, bless me, you are praying to, the way I see it, you are praying to Aga Khan. Now, whether he's an intercessor between you and Allah, the Quran says that you don't need intercessors. You can pray to Allah directly. And I used to ask my dad this. I said, why do we pray to Aga Khan when we can just pray to Allah directly? That confused me as an Ismaili. You make dua to Allah and you also make dua to Mola Baba. So I was like, that's kind of weird, right? So when I became Sunni, I was just like, yeah, I don't need that. But to be honest, Ismailism is a much better religion than Sunnism. It's much more progressive. Women and men have much more equal rights in the Khane, and stuff like that. And I do like Ismailism much more than Sunnism. I do think, again, at the end of the day, it's still a man-made religion that's, you know, has its downsides, obviously. Like, but if you were comparing the two, I mean, I've written a post on the ex-Ismaili Reddit that kind of gives my thoughts on Aga Khan and all of that stuff in more detail. I hope that answers.
Yeah.
That definitely answers your question. Just like, Ismailis are still a minority in a lot of Sunni majority countries. Sometimes when you try to make it sound like, oh, this is black and this is white, we are already persecuted. So I would just like, people may take things out of context and put it against us. So that's my fear. I grew up in Pakistan and I have seen that bigotry towards our community. And I totally agree. I'm a borderline agnostic Ismaili, although I love the intellectual freedom I have been given since my birth. I'm very critical of everything. And that's the beauty of the tradition that I'm part of. I have never been stopped. And I'm sure your father did not object when you decided to left the faith. In fact, he may have said something positive. I think I don't want to say how good we
Yeah.
are, but just like I feel sometimes I have seen people
Can you
taking things out of context
Mr.
and
Moin,
using it against us.
Mr. Moin, please, if you can finish in like less than 30 seconds because we need to move on. Thank
I'm
you very
done,
much.
sir. Thank you.
I was
No
just,
worries.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
if I can just
All
quickly
right.
respond to that. Yeah, I was just gonna say that, I mean, it depends from person to person. My dad was very chill. My stepmom was upset. My dad got married to another Smiley woman. She's a lovely, wonderful woman. She's, like a mother to me as well, and I love her a lot. But she got really mad at me for leaving his. But if you think about it, everybody would be upset when you leave the religion of your. Like, imagine you raise your kids a certain way, and they're like, "Yeah, I don't want anything to do with this now. I'm gonna change my religion." You're gonna feel bad about it, right? So he felt bad, but he was tolerant, which is the most important thing, right? So yeah, that's basically it I have to say.
Yeah,
All right.
it's a really interesting approach. I would like to welcome Captain Levi and Sigmund Freud, and I would like to the audience to follow Morbid moderators Abdullah, and don't follow me. I'm a bad influence. But okay, going on, we have Tawfiq. Would like
Yes,
to
it's
mention?
Tawfiq. Yeah. Your
Yeah.
question, Tawfiq?
Yes, hello. Yes, I wanted to ask Abdullah, when you left Islam, you are still in Islam. How are you feeling about it? Like, are you like happier than before, or are you struggling with some feelings? Because I can imagine if you are born Muslim, that it doesn't faint like that. You know what I mean?
So this is something that varies a lot. Thank you, Tofik, for the question. This is something that varies a lot from person to person. In my case, you have to remember, I converted to Sunni Islam. So I have a lot of freedom in my life that a lot of people don't have. Not only do I have a liberal family that loves me and accepts me for who I am, not what I believe, I also was an adult when I left Islam. And I also, the thing is, it depends from person to person, but the fact that I converted to Islam made it easier for me to leave Islam. I didn't suffer like some people do with, like, worrying about hell or worrying about whether they made the big mistake. I was like really happy. I am so much better off now, like night and day, being a non-Muslim versus being a Muslim. And I've talked about this on my blog. One of the big things that improved immediately when I left Islam is I bought a house. I had never been able to buy a house because I was Muslim, and interest is riba, and riba is haram, and war with Allah, and so on and so forth. So I was never able to buy a house. And so when I left Islam, I'm like, okay, well, why am I still renting? I'm gonna buy. And I bought a house. I got solar panels from my house, something I always wanted as well, which is, clean energy, supporting clean energy and all that. And my kids have now, the biggest increase in wealth that I have in my life is coming from this house now, because the value of the house has gone up. If I die, I have life insurance, so my kids will get like, $600,000 or something. The house will be paid off. Like, life is so much better now. Like, I can eat McDonald's. I mean, the small things like that. I mean, not like
I
McDonald's.
would still urge you not to eat McDonald's, Abdullah. It's not a good thing for you, though.
McDonald's is not like, yeah, like there's small things like that too. But overall, it's like I can live my life the way I want to. I'm no longer a slave to what Muhammad wanted. I'm a slave to what I want. You know what I mean? I can choose my life now. So yeah, I'm way better off, and that's part of the reason why I'm so motivated about what I do. I want other people to have the same experience I have. Now the problem is, unfortunately, a lot of people have the opposite experience. A lot of people in Muslim countries, there was a comment. Those of you who subscribe to my channel know we did a really hard-hitting live stream a couple days ago where we talked about Muhammad's mental condition of having epilepsy, temporal lobe epilepsy. And some of the comments on there were like one lady said, "I'm Muslim. I've been Muslim my whole life, and I don't know whether to thank you or curse you. Like I'm shaking right now. I'm so shaken by the content that you guys are creating. I don't know what to do with myself." So people go through this difficult phase when they leave Islam where they don't know what to do and they're lost. And especially if you're in a Muslim country, it's pretty damn tough, to now everything that you believe to be true is now a lie. So what do you do? It's tough. It's damn tough. And that's part of my job, is to help these people to come to peace with the realization. And of course, some people are obviously overjoyed and thankful that they're now free to live their life the way they want to. Some people in the LGBT community have a lot of cognitive dissonance. I had a young man who wants to transition to female. He's transgender. He has gender dysphoria, and he told me that now that I'm ex-Muslim, I no longer have this cognitive dissonance, this guilt about feeling that I want to be a woman, right? That's not an issue anymore. And people that are gay have the same issue, that they feel guilty for this sexual inclinations. And why should they feel guilty for that? There's no reason to feel guilty for that. There's nothing wrong with them. But Islam and Christianity and Judaism teaches them that you're broken, you're bad, you're sinful, you're corrupt, something is wrong with you. So obviously these people are going to suffer, right? And some of them, they end up better off. In my case, man, I was happy. I'm way better off. That's me, but everybody's different.
Yeah, most people are
Okay.
gonna experience feeling of betrayal. Like it's almost like the experience when you have like a relationship with someone and you find out that that person is cheating on you or that person doesn't love you.
Yeah.
So it's the same feeling of betrayal. Yeah. So it's gonna create really like a PTSD problems with the person. So he's gonna suffer like for at least a year of
Yeah.
trauma.
Yeah, I wouldn't
All
say at
right.
least. It depends from person to person, but yeah, it could be a couple of years. Some people I know, multiple years, they're talking to me. I know one guy been talking to me for like 3 or 4 years now, and he's like borderline ex-Muslim, but he's still struggling with certain things. So it depends, right? It depends from
Yeah,
person to
that's
person.
right.
But yeah, PTSD, feeling betrayed, that's an excellent way to put it. That's
All right. So what I need to do now, since we have like a lot of people who would like to ask questions, I'd like to make it quick for everybody to ask their questions within probably 30 seconds time, and so that Abdullah can have the time to answer all the questions. I think now, Raj, your question, sir, in 30 seconds, please.
I'm
Thank you very much.
I'm Raj.
Hello. My question is to Mr. Abdullah. While he
The
asking
quality of your voice,
the
repeat, please.
Islamic belief,
I'm
Wait, I
sorry,
think
but
there's a person. Yeah, there was a
my
person
question,
before Raj. No one.
So,
Yeah.
who
If you can
was?
refresh the
I'm
page, you
then
can see no
I
ones before.
okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. My bad. But this person has no
Yeah.
one really. All right. All right. No one
So
really
glad,
asked.
yeah.
yeah, guys, you muted me like multiple times. I'm sorry. Hi Abdullah. I'm so grateful that I'm talking to you today. I'm so honored and I respect your bravery to speak about Islam and everything, including it. And I really appreciate it, man. I really appreciate you. My question today is, as a person who publicly criticized Islam and the Prophet, did you encounter some people that would call you Islamophobe or racist simply because you criticize that religion or criticize the Prophet or the Islamic culture? And because personally, I'm not Western, I've never gone to the West, but here in the clubhouse I've encountered many Muslims, liberal Muslims, who would like to call me Islamophobe and hateful and bigot, basically stating some facts about Islam is saying it's not a religion pro uh, women or nor pro apostates nor pro LGBT. So tell me your thoughts about this. Thank you.
yes, no one really. Thank you for your question, and thank you for your kind words. and I appreciate that. Have I been called an Islamophobe? Yeah, all the time. So I want to make something clear about that word Islamophobe. The word itself, the true meaning of it, if you want to take it like charitably, if you want to be like charitable about what it means anti-Muslim bigotry. That meaning I would support. Meaning, what I mean is, I don't like the word Islamophobia, because what it does is it conflates criticism of the religion with anti-Muslim bigotry. Anti-Muslim bigotry is a real thing, and we should be concerned about it, just like anti-Semitism or anything else. And especially someone like me, that I spend so much effort in criticizing Islam, I, more than anyone else, need to make sure that I do not fall into anti Muslim bigotry, and I do not encourage, or I'm not weaponizing the far right to attack Muslims simply for being Muslims. There are people that are critics of Islam. I'm not going to mention the names. Actually, I'll mention one name, for example, Dr. Robert Spencer, that the entire thing that they do is demonizing Muslims. Like, that's their job. They will point out, look, Muslim did this, Muslim did this, Muslim killed his ex. And I had an argument with Robert Spencer when he posted this thing. He said, in Germany, this Muslim killed his wife. Okay. And he posted this on Twitter. I said, Robert, okay, Muslim killed his wife. Why are you posting this? What does it have to do with Islam? He's like, oh, it's honor killing. I said, okay, show me how it's honor. Where does it say that it's honor killing? You know, non-Muslims kill their wives too. You know that in the West, everywhere all over the world, this is a big problem. Misogyny, right? Men tend to, women are most at risk from the family members of being killed. I said, where are you showing the link to Islam here? Is there a link to Islam? And I didn't like what he was doing, because what he does is he profits off demonizing Muslims. And that is not at all what I want to do. So if someone calls me an Islamophobe from that perspective, I will strongly say, there's no way I'm an Islamophobe, because I actually will stand up for Muslims' rights. And I actually am against anti-Muslim bigotry. I will fight you. If you want to take away the rights from a Muslim because they're Muslim, I will fight you on that. If you want to kick out, I've made videos on my channel, for example, there was a hijabi. I think she was like 16 years old or something, and she was on a soccer team, and she was kicked off the soccer team because she broke the rules and she's wearing hijab. Now, this is stupid. How does the hijab get in the way of her playing soccer? In the same way that if someone wanted to not wear hijab, for example, on the Iranian chess team, they want to kick this lady off the team, or they did kick her off the team because she doesn't want to wear hijab, I would fight that as well. Like, let the women wear what they want to wear. If someone wants to practice Islam privately without hurting anybody else, they want to pray, fast, wear hijab, dress up like, if they want to do even like the way I see religion, private practice of religion, it could be like cosplay. If you want to dress up as Sailor Moon or Naruto or some anime character, I don't care. Go ahead.
But Abdullah, sorry to interrupt you, my friend. I don't really think that it stays the way that you are trying to describe it. Like, when somebody totally and completely believe in their faith, they are always ready to take it to the next level. Like what you said, like in specific, if you want to believe what you want to believe in your home, then probably I'm fine with that. But this is not the case. And most of the time, they carry this religion, this poisonous thought, a set of thoughts, in fact, to the streets, and they enforce it upon the people. In the less fortunate countries, unlike what happens in probably Canada or Germany or Europe, generally speaking, that kind of thought, or this group of thoughts, always find the way to be enforced upon people who do not want to share this. I think you agree with me on this point.
Yes, absolutely. That's why I'm saying, in the context of private practice of religion, I believe in secularism. I believe in freedom of religion. And as long as you have secularism, then you can go ahead and worship whether it's Hanuman, the monkey god, or whether it's Allah in your personal life. You have every right. If you only want to eat halal food, I don't care what you want to eat. I don't care how you live your life. If you are, and the same thing would apply to, for example, LGBT. If they want to have, a man wants to have sex with a man in his house, I have no issue with that. Why would I have an issue with what he does? It's his personal choices, just like the religious person has their own personal. Now, if you're saying not under secularism, if you're talking about a theocracy, if you're talking about Islamism, then of course I have a huge problem with that. And of course, I would say that the Muslim, I believe they would be better off without Islam. And of course, that 17-year-old hijabi, I would say, well, you will be better off without hijab. Hijab is bad. I don't agree with hijab. But my values say that I will support you if that's what you want to do.
Name is Alexander the Great.
MashaAllah.
Yeah,
like I was
the
saying, like,
first
That's quite
guy,
funny.
yeah, that was like a little bit of an advertising sort of situation.
so let me
It's a
finish. Let me
break
finish.
from
Yeah, so I'm
right.
not done. Let me say one more thing. So okay, so
Yeah,
I kind of going on and on about Islamophobia, but my point I wanted to make was, I have been called an Islamophobe. Yes, the use of the word Islamophobia is usually a defense mechanism. It's a way to shut down people from criticizing Islam. And I think Dr. Hamid Abdul Samad told me that this term was invented by the Muslim Brotherhood. It's purposely, ambiguous. Unlike anti-Semitism, which is clearly a sort of racism, Islamophobia, the term is made to shut down criticism of Islam. And of course, I get called that all the time. There's a guy on Twitter, his name is Dr. Jawad Hashmi. He always shuts me down by saying, you're an Islamophobe, you're criticizing Islam. And I'm like, well, why shouldn't I criticize Islam? I have every right to do so. The problem is, in the West, Muslims are a minority, so they get like this sort of privileged status of like not being criticized. And I think that's something that liberals need to, contend with. They need to realize that there's nothing wrong with criticizing minorities' way of life, as long as it doesn't convert into bigotry.
Okay. Thank you very much, Abdullah, for your answer. Once again, I would like to remind the speakers to ask their questions within a 30 seconds time, and for you, Abdullah, to try to answer briefly so that we can have as many questions, as many answers as we can, because we have like a time frame that we have to hold on to. So now we have.
Sorry, one moment. Before me leave, please still post a profile that I love him and I need him on Clubhouse. I need him in Clubhouse. Please still help.
That's a personal note for you, Abdullah.
Okay, I'll
All
talk
right.
to a positive prophet.
All right, Raj, your question in 30 seconds, please. Thank you.
I have two small questions to Abdullah. One is that while he was a believer, could he bring anybody to his belief? That is one question. The question is, which one will be the greatest troubling question
I
for
think there's a
Muslim
problem with the connection. Am I right?
believer?
Did you get the question?
Yeah.
Abdullah, did you get the question?
Do I ever convince people to be to convert to my belief, like atheists? You mean? Is that the question?
No, while you are in Islamic belief.
What?
While you are in Islamic belief, could you bring anybody to your belief?
Can I bring anybody to my? Oh, while I was a Muslim, did I convert anyone to Islam?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was...
Okay. So my younger brother, like I said, and I don't think I ever converted anyone from non-Muslim, but I used to convince a lot of Muslims to become more religious. I was doing kind of like what Ali Dawah and Muhammad Hijab do. I was radicalizing Muslims to become more fundamentalist. My brother went from a very liberal Ismaili background to strict Salafi. I tried to convince my mom to cancel the mortgage on her home and to get a halal mortgage. Stuff like that. I convinced one guy that used to listen to music to memorize the Quran. I had that sort of impact on people.
All right. Thank you, Raj. Turkey, your question?
Hello. I want to ask Abdullah, when you started posting videos about leaving Islam and atheism, I'm sure a lot of Muslims have tried to make the argument, have made purely philosophical arguments for the existence of God, like the contingency and the cosmological argument. I want to know what's your opinion on them.
Yeah, I think there's a reason why they always go back to these points. And Islam, I mean, you have to be honest. The idea of one God is much easier to sell, and a lot of people do get convinced by this. And then they connect it, so they'll start with the Kalam cosmological argument or the contingency argument, and what they'll do is they will somehow jump from that to Islam. In my opinion, I sidestep the entire thing. Like I said, I'm an agnostic atheist. I'm not a strong atheist. I'm not claiming there's no God. I'm claiming maybe there is a God. I don't believe there's a God. I don't have any reason to believe that Allah is a God. But you're most welcome to try. So if someone convinced me that there is a God, a creator of the universe, let's say you call it God, but you still have to convince me. How do we know this God has a personality? How do we know this God has an intent, like a character? How do we know this God speaks to people? Like, we don't know any of that stuff. Even if there is a creator, there's no reason to believe any of those other further steps, and there's no good evidence to believe that. To me, I used to believe in God because I believed in the Quran. I know it sounds weird, but the Quran convinced me there was a God. Just like if I found a spaceship, okay, and then I believe in UFOs. Like, there's a spaceship, there's evidence, but the Quran was the evidence to me. That was the reason why I believed in God. Now that the Quran is gone and the Bible, well, I'm back to square one. I'm blank slate. Maybe there's a God, maybe there's no God, but I don't think there is. So these arguments, I think the right way to put it is mental masturbation. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether there's a God or not. It just doesn't matter. What matters is, did this God reveal a religion that we have to follow? Did he send a messenger? Did he send rules? I think my 30 seconds is up.
Well, actually, the 30 seconds was like for the question maker, not for you to answer. But I think that was good. I think that was good. Abdullah, thank you for your short answer. Raphael, your question, please.
Yes, thank you. Abdullah, you made a video regarding the different qira'ats of the Quran, and you showed that they in some sort in some ways they don't have the same meanings. In some verses there is another meaning. In Hafs, for example, or in Warsh, they differ with each other. And I have here an example. For example, one second. In Hafs, in the Hafs version, in Surah 3, verse 146, it says, "And how many a prophet fought, and with him fought many religious scholars." And in Warsh it says, "And how many a prophet with whom many religious scholars were killed." So basically, there's not just a difference in dialect, but also a difference in meaning, right? So my question is, how do Muslims respond to that? Because it's very obvious that it's a different meaning. How do they respond?
Okay, so the way Muslims, I'm glad you're asking this from that perspective. The way Muslims answer this is, I'd say the vast majority of Muslims don't even know about this, but the ones that do, they will say that all meanings are encompassed and are valid. So they'll say that because they're stuck with an issue here. The issue is this: we have multiple variant readings. Now, what do we do with those variant readings? There is some differences, right? They will say that they complement each other, they add to each other. Now, you have another problem, which is when you have a speech of person, like when Allah is quoting Firaun said this, or Moses said this, and you have a variant reading, now it's like bigger problem, because now it's a quote. You're quoting some guy and there's two different things he said. Whereas if you're just telling a story, maybe you can argue that both meanings are valid and they complement each other. Or, like Muslims will even say, even the like a simple example is they'll say in Surah Fatiha, Maliki Yawmiddin versus Maliki Yawmiddin. They have similar meanings, owner versus king. Again, I don't speak Arabic and I'm not an expert by any means on this. My goal, just so Muslims don't strawman me, I'm not the one that's saying the Quran has problems with the variant readings. I'm simply showing people what the variant readings say, and they can decide for themselves whether this makes sense to them, whether one God would literally have an issue where you have multiple readings with a little bit of changes here and there. Does that make sense? Like, does that actually help Allah's case or make it worse? You tell me. You do tell me as a Muslim, right? Muslims tell me this. So I don't want anyone to try to say that this guy doesn't speak Arabic and he's making these arguments. Well, my job as an activist is to bring out these arguments to people, to show the academic papers and let people judge for themselves, right? Because I'm not at all an expert. I'm not an academic. I'm simply someone that was a religious Muslim, and I want to show people that these are the issues that you find in Islam. So that's my.
Thank you, Abdullah. Actually, I would like you to send me, like, probably we can chat later in the back channel. I would like you to send me the article about the Templeton Church or something about
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the bad effects of praying. Probably
Yes.
we can exchange some information about that. Yeah, thank you very much. Right, after Raphael, we have Amarnath. Amarnath.
Hi all. Hi Abdullah. Actually, am I audible?
Yes, we hear you. Your question, please.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I'm not from an Islamic background. I'm from India, actually. So I need to ask you a question, Abdullah. Actually, how much do you say about the historicity of the Quran? That means historicity is Muhammad. That means I heard about that Quran is actually collected and written as a book by the Usman, and he was actually just aggregating the things from actually distributed somewhere here and there, and he was just collecting those old documents and he making it as a document. So how much do you about say about the historicity of that period? I don't know, my question conveyed its meaning. Do you want me to repeat? Or
No, I
Did you get
understand.
it? Okay.
So I'll repeat your question back to you. You're asking how historic and accurate is the life of Muhammad, and I think you were emphasizing the Quran specifically, the collection of the Quran. I think, again, not being an academic, we can just look at the result of the Quran, and we can see what the scholars, the Muslim scholars say. Yasser Qadi has said very clearly that there's big holes in the preservation narrative. If you even look at his older videos, he says that the Qiraat are all jumbled up versions. They're all mixed together, right? And even the words that people use when they say, there's ahruf, even Muslims don't even know what that means because all the different possibilities don't totally add up, right? Does it mean variant? Does it mean like so? Basically, when you see what we have today, we have these different dialect versions with little changes. When you look at the Sana'a manuscript that was found in the mosque in Yemen, in Sana'a, you can see that academics have discovered by putting ultraviolet light, they were able to read the text, the palimpsest, the text that was erased, right? And they can see the old version. So it's clear that the Quran went through a process of canonization where there was changes happening. And even in the hadith, we have, people fighting, like Ibn Abbas, and they're fighting over my version versus your version, and who has a correct version. There's hadith that talk about verses that were eaten by goats and lost, and breastfeeding verses and this and that. So, there is academic papers I would recommend people to read on these things, but it's quite obvious that the Quran we have is it's a mess. It's just a mix up of whatever was there, and obviously Uthman burning all the competing versions. He tried to burn them, but still somehow they survived. So we have alternative readings. So again, this is a little bit out of my pay scale to talk about this, but I do think there's a lot of academic information. Look at Marjin Van Putten. He's a great academic that talks about this. I'm a supporter of him on Patreon. Marjin Van Putten, that's his name. You can read what's his name? Hold on a second. There's another academic. Let me see if I can find his name quickly. He has a paper. Oh yeah, so there's this Sadeghi Gudazi on the Sana manuscript. You should read that. And the paper which I really do enjoy, and I think he's Muslim, his name is Yasin Dutton. Yasin Dutton is actually a Muslim scholar. He wrote a paper called Orality, Literacy, and the Seven Ahruf Hadith. His name is Yasin Dutton, Dutton. And he's actually he's a Muslim. So he's actually writing in favor of Islam. But when you read that paper, you'll see just what a mess we have. And lastly, about whether Muhammad existed and whether he's historic, I do believe Muhammad existed. I do believe there was a real man, but obviously the details are not that clear.
Yes. Moving on to, I think the turn is to Huram, I suppose, right, Morbid?
Yes, Huram.
Yeah, you can open your mic, Huram, if you want to share your point.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
I wanted to ask that after listening to you, Mr. Abdullah, for about like 30 minutes, it seems that you're an atheist. And I just wanted to ask that what proof do you have to support your notion?
So you had to step away. And what was your question? What's my proof that atheism?
Yes.
Something like that, yes.
Okay. So as I've said in the beginning, I don't know if you heard that, I'm a weak atheist, what's called a weak atheist. So philosophically, I'm not saying there's no God. I'm saying I'm agnostic. So if you believe there's a God, well, okay, prove to me there's a God. I'm happy to hear your proof, but I have no reason to believe in God. I don't see any evidence of God. If God is here, he's playing hide and seek or something, because he doesn't answer my prayers, doesn't answer anybody's prayers. He doesn't send prophets. He did supposedly send prophets, and he was supposedly sending miracles and she camels coming out of rocks and splitting oceans and flooding the world. And now he's absent. Did he die? I don't know. Like, what happened to him? So I don't believe there's a God. If there is a God, then, well,
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. I'd like to add something, actually. I've been thinking about something before. If we'd like to consider the argument of whether a creator exists, or a God, or whatever you want to call it, scientifically, it's impossible to give or take like a denial or to prove that God exists. So the default mindset, the default position that we both, the believer and the atheist, will take is the agnostic position, right? So that's the default position that we're gonna have to take. So how am I gonna prove that there is God or there is a creator? Okay, I'm gonna try to link this creator into religions. So let's say sorry, let's say I take Islam for a context. I check the Quran. I will see if the Quran is legitimate or not. Okay. After I check the Quran, I found out that okay, Quran does is not legitimate. It's not like real. We cannot uphold. There's no miraculous. There's no miraculous claims that we that have been told by Muslims. Like even today, I heard a woman, actually a Muslim woman, who said, okay, she confessed, she admitted that Quran is not a scientific book, so it's all about miracles. No, it's all about stories, all about just mythical stuff. So it doesn't prove anything. It doesn't serve anything to the table. So like if you look at the Quran, it's what didn't even bring anything new to the table. It just the stories of Muhammad and how he treated his wives. It didn't bring anything to the table. So on that position, I go on to be an atheist because the Quran didn't give me anything, or just didn't link the creator of the universe to the Quran. And even if, like, for the sake of argument, okay, let's say Muhammad, all he's written was true. Muhammad, even if Muhammad was a Superman, that does not give the right evidence, the right link to God or the creator of the universe. That's still a burden of evidence to the Muslim.
It has been always like this, and nobody had ever, all religions fail at facing this word, prove it. That's the riddle that they cannot escape, they cannot confront, all religions. All right, now we have Sharif. Your question, Sharif. Thank you very much.
Hi there. Hi everyone. Hi Abdullah. Abdullah, the reason I raised my hand is to ask you something that you actually touched based on very, very quickly, but I would like to hear more from you in this regards. In Western countries, I think you do already understand the idea that in the political realm, there's some sort of uh, uh, giving some sort of a privilege to minority societies and minority groups, in which one of them is factually and statistically is the Muslim societies in our West. And you also live in Canada, I think so. So as I do, so I think you would understand that. Um, so in that sense, at the end of the day, ex-Muslims, I would argue that they are in a way alienated within their own racial groups, within their maybe not much in within their very close friends and very, very, very close circle of family. But other than that, further than this, I would say they are some sort of alienated to the racial groups and even to any sort of other groups. Basically, I mean, to conservatives, ex-Muslims are alienated. To liberals, I mean, they're also alienated. So, I mean, my dire question to you is, what what can an ex-Muslim do on an individual level, not in a collective level, not in an organization? I mean, ex-Muslims of North America, it's an organization, and I would argue how effective they are or not. But this is an organizational level. I'm talking about an individual level. What would an ex-Muslim do to kind of integrate in these circles in the most peaceful ways and the most effective ways? Uh, Aside being just vocal on social media, is there any other creative way that an ex-Muslim can indulge to achieve that, aside from just speaking on social media and being vocal on social media? Thank you, Abdullah.
Hey, Sheriff. Good to see you again. So you're very right that ex-Muslims are a minority inside a minority. And when you say that, we sometimes lose a... So in my case, my circle of friends were all religious Muslims. Me and my wife both. So we both lost all of the friends. I lost all my friends, pretty much. Like, I have two Muslim friends left. And doing what I do, I obviously can't really keep Muslim friends, because the back of my mind will always be wondering, well, are they going to see me as enemy of Allah, or are they going to see me as friend? So there's a little bit of discomfort there because of my particular position in being an activist and being a public activist. And as well, I was actually called up at one of the companies I work at. So someone that I know, I don't know who it was, like someone I told, maybe a Muslim person I told where I worked, and they called up the company and tried to get me fired. Luckily, I didn't get fired, but I'm always nervous now because of that. But again, activism aside, you're asking, what can we do? I think, everybody has to look at what they can do in their own personal lives, what they're good at, and they can help out in that way. Some people, it could be just donating money to someone else that's doing work. I really love the ex-Muslims of North America. It's a group that does a lot of work to, political advocacy work. Like they've actually connected with a member of parliament, a statesman in the U.S., to put pressure on Facebook to stop banning atheists slash ex-Muslim, not channels, like groups and stuff, because there tends to be a tendency where we're mass flagged and mass banned and stuff like that because of all these Muslims come and they'll gang up and I got kicked off TikTok.
I got kicked off of Facebook for 24 hours, Abdullah, for saying things against Islam. It was like a hate speech. Like, that's the warning that I got. It would be really beautiful if like they would allow people to comment against like religion with no restriction.
Yeah, it's tough, and I understand where Facebook is coming from. Like the entire business model is built off being automated, and they don't really have the manpower to, even though they have billions of dollars, but the bots are pretty bad and they're very easy to game, right? That's the problem. That's what Muslims use. They exploit this fact that the bot is expecting that people will be flagged genuinely, not mass flagged. So they need to deal with this somehow, right? And same thing on TikTok, same thing on Facebook, same thing on Twitter, same thing on YouTube. Lucky, I've been doing well on YouTube. I managed to get away with that. So, Sheriff, I would say do whatever you can in your personal life. If you're a writer, write in the news, write an article or do a blog. Or, I mean, I'm thinking of examples of social media, but I know someone that's in Saudi, and she's making movies. Now, they're not like ex-Muslim movies, but the movies that are meant to make you think and ponder and reflect on faith without being like attacking the faith, but like making people look at it from a bigger picture. If you're a musician, then maybe make music. I mean, these are all examples of things that happen on social media. You can also do political advocacy work. I'm not really an expert, which is why I donate to ex-Muslims in North America, and I let them do that because they're better at that than I am. I'm good at one thing, which is social media. So that's what I focus on. But yeah, look for ways which you can contribute in your personal life and try to connect with an organization, I think. And of course, I think another important thing is, especially in the West, is to ensure that whatever you say, you are not crossing the line into bigotry, because that just makes it too easy for our opponents to shut us down and say, look, they're calling for bigotry and they're attacking Muslims. We attack Muslims fairly and attack Islam at its strongest points, not at its weakest points. Don't strawman. Be fair in what you're saying, and I think that will have the most impact in the long run. So that, I think, from my perspective, that's what I would suggest.
Thank you.
And maybe someone else has better ideas.
Absolutely agree.
Okay. Thank you, Sharif. Thank you, Abdullah. Abdullah, I have a question for you, though. Like, I remember we were talking in the back channel, and when you told me that you would have the interview going for about half an hour and a half and up to 2 hours, and I think we're about to hit the 2 hours limit. So, are you comfortable extending it, or should we wrap it up quickly?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'll let you know when I have to go. I'm good for now.
All right, because we are about to be broadcasting for 2 hours, so just to inform you about that. But still, we would like to keep everything tight for the questioners and the answers, so that we can contain as many people as possible. Next, we have Fatima. Your question, please.
Okay. First I wanna say thank you for your story. I can relate to a lot of the things you said, and I really appreciate what you do as well, because YouTube was a big part of why I left Islam in the first place. So I appreciate your videos in general. Okay, so I have two questions. The first one is about people like Muhammad Hijab and all these people, and sometimes I see them use some sort of deceptive tactics, and I wanted to ask like uh, why do you think they do these things? Why do people threaten other people or use lying and stuff like that to promote Islam when it's supposed to be the religion of truth? And also another thing I wanted to ask is why do you make the videos? I think you sort of touched upon this already, but I wanted to know more, because ever since I became ex-Muslim, I've sort of been very quiet about it. I don't talk about it. I don't mention it to anyone. So I wanted to ask what inspires you to make videos and talk about this to other people. And yeah, that's it.
Hey, Fatima, thanks for the kind words as well, and I appreciate that it helped you, the stuff on YouTube. Can you just clarify one thing? What do you mean by deceptive tactics of Muhammad Hijab? Can you be more specific what you mean? How is he?
Fatima, he was asking you, Abdullah is asking you.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was speaking with the mic off. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
we hear you. Yes.
Okay. Okay, yeah. So I was mentioning, so things like threatening people and being I don't know. But I remember specifically, there was this video with um Alex O'Connor, if you know him. And I remember after a debate with them, he sort of there were so many things they cut pieces out of the debate and sort of other stuff like that that made it seem like there's something deceptive going on, although I don't know for sure, obviously.
Okay, I know what you're talking about. Yes, I know all about that. I made a video on that as well. So that is okay. That is true. So what I think is that people like Muhammad Hijab, he has his personality issues as well. He's very blunt, aggressive, bully type personality, which is why he does well at Speaker's Corner. He's good at shouting at people. And I'm going to say something good about him. He is intellectual. He reads books. He does this full time. So he understands where people are coming from. He's able to kind of make those points, but also he's able to bully people when he loses. He's able to use his dishonest tactics. Like, for example, like you said, they cut out parts of the debate. They didn't give permission for Alex to use the debate until finally I think he got fed up of waiting, and he just decided to upload the full video with his comments anyways, and to show people what Muhammad Hijab did and his team, not just Muhammad Hijab, but the whole Dawah team, So, and of course he has his, lying and stuff like that. I think at the end of the day, they do these things because they don't have anything else left, right? I mean, once you run out of arguments, what do? Like in his debate with David Wood, he straight up lied, right, about what David Wood said. David Wood said, the Quran says that, Allah prays to Muhammad or whatever it was. And Muhammad Hijab completely dishonestly twisted what he said and said, no, that's not what it says. why are you saying this? And he wasn't even saying that. So I think sometimes, being a debater, being someone that has a lot of experience with this, he's good at that. He's good at making it look like he's winning when he's actually not, when he's not actually making good points, or he doesn't have points, so he'll use the bullying, the intimidation. I personally felt that he was threatening Alex O'Connor, and he said you crossed some red lines and this and that. I think that's the way of getting people to shut up and shut down, right? So that's all I have to say about Muhammad Hijab. Why I do this, I have to tell people that want to do this, just be careful. There is a very heavy price you will pay by coming out and being a public activist. If you come out with your real identity, the more you do, the more public you do, the more harassment and stuff you will receive. A very good example of this is Infidel Noodle on TikTok. She never expected to be as popular as she was, and she has got so much abuse. People doxed her. Her people contacted the school that she works at. I don't even know if she's going to continue doing this or not, but it's a very heavy burden, and sometimes it's like a poison pill. Being an ex-Muslim activist, it poisons the rest of your life, and other religious communities don't even realize this. Like, for example, sometimes ex-Christians, they don't even go through half of what we go through. I was talking to a guy that was ex-Jehovah's Witness, and I was interviewing him on my channel, and I told him I got banned on TikTok because of mass flagging. He was like, he looked at me like I had two heads. He's like, what do you mean? Like, that never happened to him. He's doing perfectly fine on TikTok, and no one's ever bothered him. So I think it's just a totally different, it's just much, much tougher to be an ex-Muslim activist. You pay a very heavy burden. Even white people that get involved in this, for example, Sam Harris, it poisons their, they get called Islamophobe. They lose a lot of credibility, and they get abused by liberals for talking about this stuff. So it's important to me because I promoted this thing for 15 years, and I am living so much better now than I ever lived before. And there's so much more joy in my life now than there was as a Muslim, believe it or not. I see this world and my life as something precious and beautiful because it's limited. By it being limited and there not being any hereafter, I find now joy in the fact that, whatever time I have, I got to make the most of it, right? So for me, it's something beautiful that I want other people to have, right? And I understand that's what Dawah people are doing too. They want other people to convert to Islam. They want people to be safe from Allah's wrath, was my perspective. But now my perspective is that Islam is false. So I want people to know that, and I want to help people to live the one and only life that they have. So that's my
It's a very interesting point of view. Abdullah, Sam, we have Sam. You can open your mic and show us your point of view.
Hey guys, Abdullah, big fan of yours. Thank you for being here. My time is limited, so I will read a verse to you, and I would love for you to elaborate on that. That is the form of the question I will make. So the verse is Sahih al-Bukhari 52:31, narrated Anas. I will narrate to you a hadith I heard from Allah's Messenger, and none other than I will tell you of it. I heard Allah's Messenger saying, from among the portents of the hour are the following. Religious knowledge will be taken away. General ignorance in religious matters will increase. Illegal sexual intercourse will prevail. Drinking of alcoholic drinks will prevail. Men will decrease in number, and women will increase in number, so much so that 50 women will be looked after by one man.
Okay. Do you want me to comment on that?
Yes, please elaborate as much as you can. Since my time is limited, I will not make any statement.
Okay, are you asking from a prophecy perspective, like this is a prophecy that Muhammad made, and you want to know what I think about it?
So my view is this: a lot of the reverts have this verse as their standard. They stem from this because they say Western society is decline, and this is the verse we go to.
Okay, so yeah, okay, I understand. You're asking from a perspective of moral decay. Like this is basically the slippery slope into degeneracy. Is that right?
Not really. I mean, it says there, and they claim is that one, and they spread the dawah through this verse and say, you see, this is the evidence. I think they actually ignore a lot of the problems of Islam itself.
Right. So, well, first of all, the male to female ratio is basically 1-to-1 still in the world. It's not what 50-to-1 or whatever Muhammad said. This increase in illegal sexual intercourse, this is a ridiculous comment. This is a absolutely dumb comment. According to a hadith, there was a lot of prostitution happening before Islam, and then it's still happening. I mean, the only difference nowadays is that marriage is declining as an institution because I think being involved in the private matters. So obviously more and more people are living together, but for all intents and purposes, it's like a marriage. So, in Canada, you have a lot of people that live common law, but for all intents and purposes, the government considers it as if you're married. So if you split up, you still have to split your assets. If you live together more than 2 or 3 years, they basically treat you like a married couple. So it's just the prophecy is false. There's nothing correct about that. Sexual intercourse or whatever, that's the same amount it's always been. Human beings are still going to be human beings. Maybe marriage is declining, sure, but I don't know what else you want me to add to that.
No, I think that there must have been you've given like a good answer, Abdullah. We can move to the Uzair. Uzair, your question, please.
Yeah, this question is posed to Abdullah. Is that earlier you dismissed the arguments for monotheism, specifically, obviously, the cosmological argument, contingency argument, as intellectual masturbation. Could you actually give a intellectual critique of the argument without just dismissing it and insulting it? And also, you've actually made a lot of moral critiques on Islam without a objective morality and being firmly based in subjective morality. So how do you reconcile that inconsistency? Thank you for allowing me to use this platform, and thank you for the way you guys have moderated it.
Thank you very much. Abdullah, your answers.
Yeah, Uzair. So what I meant to say is that when I say this is mental masturbation, what I'm not saying it's true or false. I'm saying it doesn't matter. Let's say, for example, deism is true. So put aside revelations of God, talking to messengers and all that stuff. Let's say there is a God. Let's say that the contingency argument is true. This contingent reality, it makes no difference to my life because it only matters if this God, this reality, whether he's the quantum form may be the contingent reality. This existence where universes pop in and out of existence. If that is a contingent reality, then well, that doesn't affect me in any way. If there's a God, a creator with no personality, who never spoke to humans, maybe it doesn't even know that we exist. Like we might be like some, out of 100 billion, like if God doesn't have a personality, he might not care whether we exist or not, if he's a power or force. So when I say intellectual masturbation, I just mean like it doesn't affect me in my life in any way whatsoever. I'm not saying whether it's true or false. And like I said, I'm agnostic. So if you want to grant, I'm willing to grant you that God exists, and then we can have a conversation about the rest of it. How do we prove that Muhammad is a prophet? Personally, I don't think he's a prophet because I think the Quran falls apart. So if just to keep it short, that's all I'll say. About your objective morality question, this is a really big question. And as I mentioned earlier, I uploaded a video to my YouTube channel. My latest upload on Friendly Ex-Muslim is called The Lie of Islamic Morality. And I cover some major issues with Islamic morality. And my opinion is that everyone's morality is subjective, even Muslims. You're making a claim that morality is objective to you, but that doesn't make it right for everybody. It's your claim, right? You're making a claim that this morality is objective, and even among Muslims, so here's a couple of points from my video. One is the evidence, the things that you use as evidence, the Quran and Sunnah, is going to be limited to whatever happened in Muhammad's life. So you have an issue of one, there's new issues that will come up which were never discussed. The other issue is that you're basing your entire morality on hearsay sources that may or may not be true. Maybe some people will say this hadith is weak. Maybe some people will say this hadith is not weak. So based on that, you have Shias that have their own source of hadith. So even among Muslims, you have disagreements on what is right and wrong based on whether they accept the sources or don't accept the sources. You then have to use your human interpretation. So at the end of the day, even if the Quran was this absolute true revelation of God that reflects objective morality from Allah, you still have to interpret it. You're still a human being that has to read this, because unless you have a guide, like Ismailis believe in a living imam that is a representative, kind of like a prophet, not a prophet, but unless you have this representative of God that's able to make judgments for you, you're never going to have the perfect answers. It's always going to be an ijtihad, an effort, a best guess effort on morality, which is again subjective. So I just think this objective argument, this objective morality argument is not convincing at all. Christians have their own objective morality. Muslims have their own objective morality. Within Islam, you have changes in morality within the Quran and within Muhammad's life. Within the Quran, you have something that's considered completely forbidden being okay. I'll give you an example. Allah says that the brothers and the father of Yusuf were ordered to bow down to Yusuf. Now, this is considered a sujood of like respect, not a sujood of worship. However, this is completely forbidden. I'm not allowed to bow down to any man anymore, right? This is now forbidden under Islam. The other example that comes to mind is muta, temporary marriage. This was allowed for one period of time, then it wasn't allowed for another period of time. So which one is it? Is it right or wrong? Another example, during Muhammad's life, at one period in time, the Quran allowed, Islam allowed, or Muhammad allowed Muhammad forbade Muslims from having sex during the nights of Ramadan. It was completely forbidden. Then after the companions faltered, Allah decided to change the rule, and he actually mentioned that in the Quran. You guys, you failed in this, so I'm going to change it, and I'm going to allow you to have sex in Ramadan at night, obviously, right? Not during the day when you're fasting. So how is this, if there is an objective behind this, it seems to be changing, first of all, on the whims of, another example. Muhammad, or Allah, forbade adoption right when he wanted to marry his adopted son's ex-wife, Zayd ibn Haritha. Zayd ibn Muhammad, the Quran says Muhammad was scared of the people calling him basically, like someone that's doing incest because he's marrying his adopted son. And it says he was scared of that. You were scared of the people, but you should have been scared of Allah. And then Allah said, there's in I think Surah Ahzab, there's no more adoption. You're going to call them by their father's name. That's more just in the sight of Allah. So apparently, this great pre-Islamic practice of adoption, where you take a man, a boy, or a girl, and you make them your child. You say, and like, this child is now my child. He is now my child. He takes my family name. He's one of us. Islam forbade that. Why? Because it's more just to call him by the father's name. This practice has been going on for centuries, and many people actually.
Someone has their mic open.
Yeah, they were kicked out.
Okay.
So I'll give you one more important example of adoption and how this is actually a bad thing. When you look in history, there's a very famous example. And the example is, hold on, I'm trying to find it here. Oh, yeah. Julius Caesar and Cleopatra had a son. And they had an adopted son. Guess who became the leader of the Roman Empire? Their adopted son, Caesar Augustus. And the natural son of Julius, probably never heard about him. So you see that the other cultures honored adopted children and they gave them full rights. How is this a bad thing? So anyways, I mean, I can go on and on about how Islamic morality, because it's not based on harm and benefit, but it's based on obeying God, it's inferior to secular morality. Secular morality puts human rights above everything else, which is the way it should be, in my opinion, right? Because we're conscious creatures and we matter. How is blasphemy the most horrible sin when God, like, how is God hurt by that? But apparently, according to Islam, well, because it corrupts people or whatever, you can kill people for blasphemy. I mean, that's just ludicrous. So, anyways, that's my take. I can go on for hours about this. It's a very long topic, and the subject, the format of this discussion is like quick question and answer. I don't think we'll be able to go through this unless we keep going back and forth, back and forth. But please do check out my video. I go into a little bit more detail.
Okay, thank you.
Can I comment on this? So, yes, like you mentioned two arguments, the morality argument and the contingency argument. I can agree with Abdullah. I was going to say the kind of the same things he said, especially about the morality argument. Like, for instance, as you said, mut'a marriage, okay? Used to be, halal. Uh, um, and now it isn't, okay? How's the morality objective? And it's still halal until now. It's still moral for Shias, no Sunnis, but Shias. So how is it so objective? And one other thing, you have incest. Okay, this guy who asked the question believed that all humanity came from incest.
I can't hear
you're
you.
gonna say because there was only
Yeah,
one.
you're breaking.
What
Yeah,
was
you're
that?
breaking. You're breaking. Can you repeat the last 10 seconds?
I know what he was saying though. He was talking about Adam and Eve and incest and how it was allowed.
Yeah.
So I do want to make.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah. Like if I mention incest, why was it right back then? They're gonna say, oh, because there was only Adam and Eve, they couldn't be done, otherwise. And I would say, God could have just made, a whole tribe instead of just a man and woman, right? So it's not a problem for God. Why would He made it or make it right back then, and now it's immoral? Like why were incest wrong and now it's right? I mean the opposite.
So I don't want to. I do want to make one clarification here. I do understand that with objective morality, you can have exceptions and you can have, for example, the situation is different. That doesn't. So objective morality doesn't mean absolute morality. It doesn't mean that in every time and place it has to be exactly the same rule. Because, for example, a good example my friend gave me was the objective might be not to get wet, but it rains, you wear a raincoat. It doesn't rain, you don't wear a raincoat. The objective is still being met, but you're actually doing something the opposite. You're wearing a raincoat versus not wearing a raincoat. So absolute morality can be a little bit different than objective morality. However, the question would remain is what is objective morality? Is this something that exists in Allah's head only? And how do we determine that objective morality? Because Allah doesn't reveal anymore. So now it's going to be, no matter what, it's going to be subjective, no matter what.
But Abdullah, what I meant is like, okay, if you say that incest was wrong, okay, what is that based on? Because God said so. Okay.
That's a good question.
Yeah. Why is it wrong? Like the debate between Lawrence Krauss and Hamza.
Mm-hmm.
Like he mentioned this. He mentioned this. He was like, "Is incest wrong?" And like I don't agree with what Lawrence Krauss said, but I mean the same question should be asked to Hamza. Why is it wrong? If you believe that like the whole humanity it came from this, like God could have just created a tribe instead of just a man and woman. And yeah, it's like there's like a lot of things. I'm, I'm not gonna mention them because to comment on the other argument. Uh, like he mentioned like some stuff like marriage, marriage and other stuff. And even you have like in Shafi'iyya, okay, you can marry your daughter. If you commit like adultery, okay, and you have a daughter from this adultery, you can marry her, okay.
That's
So it's
that's weird.
yeah. And the other, Malikis and Hanabilas and others, they said no, that's wrong. It's immoral. For Shafi'is, no, it's the opposite. It's okay to do that. Okay, And there's like a guy who asked that question. He said he committed adultery when he was 18. Okay.
الحمد لله إذا من علينا بفتح بيجي والآن بيجي بأيدينا بفضل الله عز وجل.
هذه هي فخر الصناعة الأمريكية. نقول إلى الحلف الصليبي والروافض: ألم نعدكم أن بيجي محرقة الكفار والمرتدين؟ فهذا ما ترون.